Hello, welcome to the Road to 2000. My name's Erik Tkachenko, and today I will be your driver. So the usual hosts couldn't make it today, so yep, I'm here. My name's Erik. I am currently around 2100. I crossed 2000 back in 2019 when I was 16 years old. Unfortunately, haven't made it, to the next stage yet, but this isn't Road to 2200, so I am qualified. So today I decided to take a look back at some games I played before I actually hit 2000, and it's been a while since I've done so. And I found one of my favorite games that I played, honestly, like throughout my life. And then I found another game that I played last year in the Chicago Open that I feel like illustrates, how I've grown from 2019 and even since before. So yeah, we're just gonna get started here. So I am white. I'm playing against Alvin Pulley. At the time of this game, I was 1925. This is the 2019 Chicago Open, unless it's the Chicago Class, but whatever. So I started the game with e4 because that's what I do.
Okay.
Hello? So I started with e4. My opponent replied with c5, so we were in the Sicilian, and I am a Sicilian lover, so that's why this game went so well for me, because when you play something you're familiar with, things go better. So we went down some mainline Sicilian. My opponent played e6. In this position, there's a lot of different ways black can play. Thank you for the kind chat messages in the chat I see. So black can go d6, he can go a6, he can go e6, he can go knight f6. There's probably like some other moves, like this is a move, g6 is a move. Anyways, he chose e6, and now this is actually what I play as black. And the way I decided to play as white, at this time of my chess journey in 2019, I would say I was a little less sure about my openings and kind of just the systems that I choose when I'm playing against I don't know. I wasn't as experienced. So I didn't know exactly how I wanted to play against this type of system. So I kind of just continued pretty normally. The way that I was taught a lot of the time against Sicilian structures like this is you can put your bishop here, you can put this bishop here, you can castle, and then once all those moves are done, then you can decide if you should do something else. Maybe you'll go f4. It's all kind of like reactive, especially when black plays in this way. When black plays queen c7, he's going for a less theoretical line and more kind of just developing your pieces, and it's really just a game. So bishop e3, a6, preventing any potential knight b5 ideas. I go bishop e2, like I was saying. Black develops like normal. I castled. And here, black makes the first, I'd say, important decision. So in this opening, this bishop has to decide either to go to e7, where it's safe, and then potentially you can go d6. You can kind of hide this bishop behind these pawns. So let's just give an example line. Let's say white goes f4. Maybe you play d6, something like bishop f3, castles. I don't know if I've played the most accurate moves exactly, but the point is this is a type of setup that black can go for where the bishop is here. And what he decided to do when he played bishop b4 is he's kind of hard committing to this idea of pressuring the e-pawn indirectly. So in the current position, the e-pawn is attacked by the knight, and it's defended by my knight. So after bishop b4, he's threatening to take this knight. I'll take back, and he'll take my pawn. And the reason I say threatening like that is because a lot of the time, white can kind of sacrifice a pawn here. I guess, and if it's black to move, I do agree this is a threat. You can take this pawn. However, giving up this bishop, even for the cost of a pawn, when all your pawns are on the light squares, like black chose to do, is very risky. So you're going to see in a second what I did to take advantage of that. So first, I played knight takes c6. There's tons of moves you could play here. I think that the book has knight a4 as the main move, I think. This position, by the way, has, let's see how many times it's been played. Oh, shoot. Yeah, like 2,000 games went knight a4. thousands of master games in this position, so we're playing like pretty standard. I didn't know the line though, so I took on c6. I thought when you don't know what to do and you're in a system that you're comfortable with or in a position you're comfortable with, you want to make your opponent make the decisions. So when I take on c6, black has a lot of decisions. He can take with the b pawn, he can take with the queen, or he can take with the d pawn. And depending what he does, I might do something different. So he decided to take with the queen, which I thought was a little strange. Usually I think they take with the b pawn, and then one idea with this is you prepare to play d5, which is a very thematic type of break that you play when you have this e6 type of Sicilian. And okay, maybe in this position, d takes is probably possible too. The idea being after black castles, he'll play rook d8, and now the file's open. But this is also a double-edged decision because white already has the d file, potentially can start to double up themselves. You also have to deal with this bishop now. So black definitely has a lot of problems in this position. But after queen takes c6, what he was hoping for is he's attacking my e pawn again, he's attacking my knight again, and everything's attacking everything, so he's hoping he can maybe win my e pawn. I decided to go bishop f3, lining myself up with the queen on this diagonal, and then also protecting an e pawn, so no longer can he take. However, I do hang the c pawn. So if you'll notice, the queen and the bishop both attack the knight, and I only defend it with the pawn. So this can be captured, but I would never even consider taking this pawn. My opponent, however, is not me, and he took the pawn. So now we're going to see what I was talking about when black plays this type of system and gets rid of their dark square bishop, especially before castling. You're going to leave a lot of holes in the position that can be abused immediately. So I'm going to pause here for the first time of the game and see if see what people in our live audience or the chat can come up with. How do we think that white should handle this position? So remember, dark squares very weak. A lot of ways that we could maybe abuse that.
Put your bishop on d4.
Put bishop d4, yeah. Very reasonable move. Someone in the chat also. And yeah, this is definitely an option. The reason that I did not choose to go for this is after queen c7, do you have a follow-up idea?
Take the knight and double up their pawns.
Okay, take the knight and double up the pawns. So I think that white has a very good position here, especially after something like this, or maybe even like queen d2, something like this. But the reason your position is good is because the dark squares are still weak. So like even though you do get to double black's pawns, you'd rather keep the dark square bishop on the board and try to maximally abuse the squares that are weak. At least that was the way I was thinking of it. And yeah, this could have been an option too. I think here though, you probably don't want to take the knight. I think e5 would have been a reasonable continuation because the knight's actually really low on squares. If he goes to d5, you can even just trade, and then these pawns, those are some double pawns that you don't want to have for black.
If you take the knight with the bishop, it seems to me you wind up losing some of the control of the center.
You think white loses control of the center here?
Not here. I'm saying, I was just agreeing.
Oh, here. Like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You wind up giving them the center back.
Kinda, yeah. I mean,
Kinda.
you do still...
Not in a real strong way, but...
You do still control this d5 push, luckily, but with the bishops on the board, you control it a lot more. That's definitely for sure. So okay, bishop d4. Anyways, let me look real quickly at this e5 move. The knight can't go here, it can't go here. If you want to try to go to d5, like I said, you can just trade the pawns. And this is just like very ugly. I'm not sure what. Probably just queen g4 is good. And if castles, like worst case, you can just start just pushing the f pawn down the board. You can probably even sacrifice this pawn, and it's going to take a long time for black to develop these pieces. Queen g4 might not be the most accurate, but let's just quickly see what the engine has to say. Okay, it is the most accurate. Well, I guess yeah. Anyways, position is not good for black, that's for sure. And if the knight goes back, then like, okay, you put your knight back on g8. Maybe he can go knight e7, knight g6, but in the meantime, we can start to get our bishop on this square, maybe force the queen to some dumb square, and then we can just slowly kind of, just do that. Like, there's no really other way to explain it.
White controls the board now.
Yeah, exactly. The way that I like to play, and even back in 2019, I didn't know how I like to play, but I like to control as much of the board as possible, and squeezing your opponent is kind of the best way to win. Like when your opponent just is sitting there and it's like a +10 position, they just don't even want to move. That's a very enjoyable way for me to win. So I'm going for the kill. I play queen d6. Sorry, I was gonna wait a second, but the move's here on the board. I chose to play queen d6. Someone in the chat did, let's see, a couple people did see that, so congratulations. The idea of queen d6 is we immediately prevent castles. So if we were to play some move that wasn't very active, bishop d4 is a good move. Let's say we played like h3. Black gets the castle, and all of a sudden, none of our control over this diagonal, the a3 to f8 diagonal, really matters anymore because the king is out of the way. The rook could maybe go to e8 and kind of dodge all of those attacks. So when I see this position, the first thing I'm thinking of is how do I stop black from castling? And once you play queen d6, you also happen to be threatening moves like bishop c5, which make a battery on the diagonal, threatening mate, and it's already extremely uncomfortable for black. I think that the engine actually says it's already more than +1 for white. Black's decision to take here was wrong. I think they were supposed to castle, I believe. Anyways, he chose to play queen c6, and let's go back a second. In this position, when I played queen d6, I didn't just play queen d6 and say my position is good, something good's gonna happen. I first saw the next, I'd say like few moves. I definitely saw queen c6 because he wanted to stop this being checkmate, so he wanted to trade queens. So if I leave my queen here, let's say I defend it, or like, okay, fine, like this, I think black can afford to trade queens, and even though he still can't castle, he's up a pawn and is playing the game. Honestly, don't have much to say about this position. It's probably really bad still. I think probably black has to go for something like knight g8, knight e7, and just try to move. I think white should still be doing pretty well here, but I thought that my move kept more pieces, kept more pressure, and it's also pretty forcing. So does anyone want to try to find the move that I played here? I'm not from Chicago. Someone in chat said, what part of Chicago are you from? That's not me.
It might have been confusing because the game is played in Chicago.
Oh, true. This game was played in Chicago. Okay. Queen a3 also has been suggested in the chats. Someone is also suggesting e5. Someone suggesting queen b4.
Yeah, but then you can press the pawn and pressure your queen out of the way.
After queen b4?
Yeah, you can press his pawn, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll look at all these moves. I want to wait a little bit more to see if anyone has any other ideas. It's good that you guys are all paying attention to the theme of the dark squares being weak.
Yeah.
But there's, it's hard to give a hint without just giving you guys the move, but I'll just wait a second. Okay, someone in the chat got the answer, so it's possible. Someone's suggesting rook d1. Sorry?
Yeah.
Rook d1?
Yeah.
So this kind of, I'll go over this move real quick. It sort of falls to the same pitfall as this move, where I don't really want to let him trade. Even though my position is still going to be good, I would rather keep the queens on and attack the king like as soon as I can. bishop c5. So I've already went over why this isn't maybe the best. I think black can probably do this, but I don't know. This is still very playable. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Queen g3. Exactly. Queen g3. That's the move I played. So before I go over that move, I'll quickly address these other moves. So if you go queen b4, then a5 is an idea. But let's just first go over queen a3 because it's kind of the same idea. Even if you get to keep your queen on this diagonal, the issue is I think he can go d6. Or can he not here? Something like this, and then after a line like this, and then you do end up winning this pawn, black can actually just sacrifice this d-pawn, blockade it, and then now, since white's pawn is blocking the diagonal, now you can actually castle safely. I think this is an idea for black. But this kind of theme of e5, by the way, will come up again. But I think in this variation, black is able to maybe play d6. I mean, okay, there's like this and stuff, but like, I don't know actually. Let's see real quick what. Oh, this also is hanging as well. d6 is fine though, not fine, but many ways to win this position, to be honest. But I personally did not want to just allow him to castle at all costs. So I decided to go queen g3. Trust Bunzo also found it in the chat. And the variation that I saw was if he castles, it looks like I can go bishop h6, but then knight e8, and he actually defends the mate. If he were to push, then I take. So what I saw was e5, which discover attacks the queen and attacks the knight. If he goes here, now I play bishop h6, and there's no knight anymore to defend this square. And like I said, after this, you might not even want to take the exchange here. This looks very, very good, but I wouldn't be surprised if leaving your bishop here and going for some kind of, I don't know, like something with queen h4, taking the knight, like whatever. Very bad position for black, because worst case, you're just losing an exchange, or best case, actually. So this is what I saw, and I think the engine gives this line, which is knight e4, and after queen h4, it looks like black can't really defend the knight that's pinned, but he actually has a very like crazy resource. If the way I think about this tactic is like black just needs to defend knight with a pawn no matter what at all costs, so he's just going to throw all his pawns at it until it's defended. So he can sacrifice this pawn, play f5, and apparently continue this position, but in my opinion, after just like rook d1, white is a lot better, and he's, I think, even, yeah, we're even material. We have a d-pawn on d6. Black's bishop is terrible. This pawn, or this knight is pinned. Not a good position. Anyways, so that was what I saw if he castled, and if he went rook g8, I believe the same idea. Yeah, we just go here, and we kind of get the same sort of stuff, but the rook's on g8, and you still can't castle, and this is just kind of an ugly move. To be honest, hard to suggest a move. What he needed to do was castle. It's very hard to play that as black, knowing that you have to go down these lines I just saw. But this is why the engine, I think, not like it doesn't understand this position, but looking at the evaluation here is a little misleading, because the only line that gets you to this very minuscule only +4 or 1.4 would require you to sack material, and you'd have to admit your position is bad, which is very hard to do as a human. So what he did was king f8, which, you know, it's not much better than the other stuff, but I assume he played this because he didn't see an immediate killer blow, which usually is a good strategy. You can just make moves until you know you're lost. But in this case, unfortunately, there's something pretty much equivalent to a knockout blow here. So what move should white play here? And then if you see the first move, give me a second move, because the second move is also nice to see. Okay, Fisher random chess, that is a good first move. Can you give me a short variation? This move has been suggested. It's kind of crazy. I think I'll take that. I like the bug house spirit though. So do you guys remember what the idea was here? What move I said I was going to play? I was going to go here, right?
Right.
So after king f8, nothing's really that much different. The reason I went here is, everything that made that tactic work is still the case. The knight's still there, the queen's still there. And now there's actually a move after here, which is possible because the king is on f8, which is very strong. So I want you guys to, I'll just play this on the board. This is really the nicest move, I think, kind of just immediately causes some indefensible tactical issues. What is this line? Fisher random chess. Fisher random chess, you have literally the exact right idea, but just you did not need to sack a bishop to do that though. Queen g5, that's pretty much the right move. I played queen h4, so what's your point of this move?
You can checkmate if you're not paying attention. And then if he pushes the pawn, he open up for another check.
You want to take it? Yeah. No, this is very good. I think this is winning probably. The move I played is queen h4, which is a little bit better. I'm not sure exactly what the best resource would be after queen g5, but the reason I went here instead is still threatening checkmate, but also if I need to for some reason play c4, this knight is pinned, so you can just pin it and win it, and now my queen defends that square. And also a third reason is f6 no longer attacks my queen. Not like that really mattered because I'm pretty sure taking is still extremely winning, but just trying to play this as accurately as I could. And he goes king e8, which was kind of funny. One cute little line here is if queen c7, I think I would take here first, possibly bishop c5 first, but let's just pretend like this. And now we give this check. And if he takes our bishop, he hangs checkmate. And if he goes here, he hangs checkmate. And then if he goes here, we just go here anyways. And it's kind of funny because normally in the open, or we're not really in the opening, but I don't know, black's position is just so sad. You normally aren't really worried about a queen getting to the back rank and checkmating your king when all your rooks are still on the board and haven't moved. None of black's pieces have moved except the queen, and this is like very, very, very hard to stop. You can go h6, but I mean, what even is the best move here? I guess you go here, and then something like this looks extremely, extremely winning to me. You basically have a free position because black can't move this pawn. The only way to develop this bishop would be like this, and then now there's another pawn in the way. It's just. It's crazy. It's very, very ugly. The engine, it's only, what is the material here? I think it's equal position material, but this would be like +10 in the engine or something. Okay, so he went king e8 here. and I went c4, like I was saying. Also, by the way, if let's say after here he did go here, we would still have this move, which would have been winning too. So queen g5, very good move still. So I go c4, and he tries one last little trick. So some of you might be thinking you can take this knight, because that's what I just told you we were doing. However, that would be bad due to hanging your queen. And that's a long move, so it's hard to see. But if your opponent plays, in this position, when your opponent plays queen a4, you should be a little suspicious that he might have a reason, because that move looks very random. So I found a nice little, I just spoiled it, but we got to finish the game in a nice fashion, still abusing those dark squares. We took a little break over here on the king side, kind of tickled him from the side, got him back to e8. Now he can't castle anymore. Now let's hit him on this side. And we're finally going to go back to the original problem of his position, which was the dark squares. So I want to play bishop c5 and checkmate him on e7. But what's the issue with this? I think he can go d6 or something, and basically he's not mated in 1. This position's like plus like 10 or something, so it's, you know, very fine to play like that. But I wanted to just mate him by force, so I was very mean and I played bishop takes d5, which doesn't even win a knight. I don't even get to take with the pawn, but it's not about the material here. It's about none of black's pieces have moved and white's pieces are perfect, or at least the bishop and queen.
And you have to take the knight too for that checkmate to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the knight was the only piece that black had that was doing anything. So we just wanted to get rid of that at any cost. So after pawn takes, there's a couple winning moves. Well, more than a couple. I think even like this would be winning probably. Well, definitely. Even this is winning. But I found the way to threaten checkmate immediately and basically force resignation. He did continue a few more moves. I went bishop b6. You could also go bishop c5, but again, there's this trick that black has which avoids getting mated technically, but, or I don't know, I guess like this, and you can like hide. This should be made soon either way, but I went to b6 because now you can't even block it with the pawn, because if you go here, then you're not even stopping the mate, and there's actually no way to defend this square. So I'm just threatening this. You know, if you just walked into the room and saw me play bishop b6, you'd be like, black can castle and be totally safe, black can castle. But then, you know, got to show you that this happened earlier. So black can't castle, which would have helped a lot. So he decided to go f6, which is basically just a resignation. I took just opening up the king even more. He went king f7. I went rook e1, very calm, just going to threaten this. I don't know, he went g6, I went here, and he resigned the game. So yeah, this is one of my favorite games that I played actually, because it illustrates what can happen when you get an initiative and you just push it the whole time. And it's also, I enjoy games where there's a theme at the beginning. The theme here was the dark squares. So black made this decision which changed the course of the whole game in this position when he took on c3. And I like that kind of game where you kind of know what you're playing for. Like I knew that I'm going to play on the dark squares, and then you just find the right all ideas and they work. You know, it doesn't always work, but yeah. So I thought this was a pretty nice game. Let's just go back real quick. Yeah, this was black's mistake. Let's just try to see what the engine would have done.
So when you have, what makes you confident that you have the advantage of the dark squares? Is it just because he don't have the dark square bishop? Is that?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that adds?
Well, specifically once he took here, it was more like once we got to this position, it was a combination of like the concept that his bishop is gone and I have a bishop, plus also I saw the line, like the specific line of he had to bring his queen back to c6 and threaten a trade, and then once I went to queen g3, he couldn't castle, and I knew he couldn't castle, and like once I saw that line, I was very sure that no matter what, I was going to be able to get something on this diagonal and stop him from castling. And that was mainly helped because he traded. So if you went back with the previous setup earlier in the game, if you guys weren't here, I mentioned that black has this bishop e7 move, which would have been a whole different game. Like the first 7 moves would have been exactly the same, but this one decision to play bishop e7 like totally changes white's plans, and it would have been a whole different game. But yeah, so black trading this dark square bishop. Also, when you sack a pawn like this, you know that you have to do something quick, otherwise you're just down a pawn. And also I've seen this idea a lot where in the Sicilian, white's able to sack this c-pawn. Like it's actually very common to sack this knight on c3 to this exact type of attack. So I knew the idea, I knew it had to be fine, and that was kind of the justification for my thought process and for my play. Okay. If there's no more questions on that game, we'll head on to the next game. So in this game, I'm black, and this, you'll notice my rating went up 200 points since the last game. This game was played last summer at the Chicago Open. So I guess all the games I play that are good are from Chicago. I'm also playing the Chicago Open this weekend, so hopefully that happens. Hopefully the streak continues. So this game I'm black. I'm playing a national master. He has been above 2200. His name's not Joshua Harrison. I have the black pieces. I think this was round 2. We both had 1 point. And here I'm black in the Sicilian. The last game I was white in the Sicilian, so you'll notice that I like the Sicilian. And here white chose to play the Smith-Morra gambit. And even though I'm a fan of the Smith-Morra gambit, I'm not a fan of losing to the Smith-Morra gambit, so I declined the gambit. And the reason I don't really mess with that, and it's kind of part of my chess philosophy is kind of make the game as simple as you can make it, and I have my own systems and ways that I like to play, and if I want to learn how to play this as black and accept the pawn sacrifice and defend perfectly, maybe one day I'll do that, but I would rather just be the guy who does the gambits and not accepts them, because I don't have to know how to defend as well. So I just go knight f6, which is totally fine. And the good part about this as black is in some gambits, you need to take the pawn or whatever they're gambiting, otherwise you're worse. But here you can play differently and you'll still get a pretty equal position. So when it's like that, I usually think it's a totally reasonable strategy to not take the gambit. If you can get a good position without going into something that they might know way better than you, then that's totally fine. So he goes e5. This is all theory. We'll just kind of blitz through these moves because it's theory. And he took with the queen. So this was the first kind of weird decision. It's actually very common for this position to get reached from here. So as white, I actually play this sideline sometimes with white, which is I'll try to play the Smith-Morra, black will decline it the same way I did, and you'll take with the queen here. It's a little different than the game we just played. And then black will go here, 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 and this is just some theory. White's a little bit worse here actually, so maybe I should update my theory, but I play it kind of as a trick line. But fortunately for me, the theory that I knew was bad for white, he decided to play it. And I actually happen to know the refutation to this, which was very nice. So he got to this position, which is the exact same position I just showed you, but what he did was he went knight f3 in this position instead of taking. But black doesn't really have any other move to play, so we transposed. The queen took on d4, go knight c6, queen e4, still theory, f5, still theory. The point is, if you don't play f5, white has a lot of space, and black doesn't really have much to show for it. Also, you conveniently kick the queen to a bad square, and white can't really do anything about it. If he decides to en passant, we just take back with the knight, which gains a tempo on the queen, and then we can probably just play normal, and black is totally fine here. He has 2 center pawns. even this rook could be good one day. I think black is probably even better here, honestly. So after f5, he goes queen e2. If he goes to c2, the issue with playing like this is now the e-pawn is extremely weak. So the queen was doing its, one of the jobs the queen was doing was defending the e-pawn. So once it's gone, now we just pile on, and I think you're actually just losing the pawn here. I don't see a way to defend it. So you can't play like this. So he went queen e2, still theory. And here's the move that this is the most like shocking move in the opening. I only played it because I know it's the move. I played b5, and it completely sacrifices the pawn. But the point is, if you don't play b5, like let's say you just continue calmly like this, white will just develop like this, which is usually how they develop in this opening. It's actually like hard. My intuition just wants to play b5. It's hard for me to even play a different move here. I'm trying to like come up with an example move. I don't know, let's say we do this. Basically, as you can see, the bishop can't do anything unless you play b5. So you could also go b6 instead and put the bishop here, but b5 takes more space. It also, one of the ideas is you're going to go b4, and you also just can't take that pawn. Obviously, if white could just take that pawn and be fine and be up a pawn, then I wouldn't have played this, but there's a lot of compensation, which I will show. So he took the pawn. I went queen c7, piling up on this pawn, forcing the queen back to e2, and now we go a5. And what we've done by sacrificing this b pawn is now we gain the ability to play bishop a6, putting our bishop on this amazing diagonal. And kind of like the last game, if my bishop gets to that diagonal, I'll stop him from castling. Maybe I'll even take on f1 and stop him from castling like that. And the really annoying thing about white's position is this pawn. And it's kind of the fundamental downfall of his whole position, I think, because you always have to keep an eye on this pawn. And if the queen and knight are both tied here all the time, then that also means your bishop can't get out. That also means you can't play f4, which would solidify your pawn. And it just makes your position very hard to play, and you'll see why in a second. He played a3. I think the idea is he wanted to go c4, but he didn't want to allow some knight b4 idea. I could go bishop a6 immediately, but I went a4. It's all pretty equivalent. And I saw the potential of my bishop getting here, my knight getting here. Maybe I'm going here next. If his pawn ends up on c4, then I'll still do everything I said, and now I'm attacking a pawn, and then I'll go rook c8, and then I'll play bishop b7, and then I'll castle. And the fact that I'm able to make all these arrows super quick shows you that the position is very fluid. Once the b5 move is played, I think black has such an intuitive position. I absolutely love this position for black. It's just, everything just develops perfectly. So he goes c4. I could go bishop a6, but the order is pretty much, the order doesn't matter. I go knight a5. It looks like I might be hanging this knight, but the trick is I uncovered my queen. So if he takes, then I take, and this is really bad because I'll do that. So after knight a5, he went knight d2, and now he's kind of doing what I said with the e-pawn, except he's doing it again with his c-pawn too. So now he has his knight and queen both stuck to that pawn, but wait, this queen is also stuck to this pawn. So yeah, you don't really want to tie all of your pieces to be defending each other, because it's kind of like a rubber band ball. It's all like, really tight, and just one more little it can all snap at once when one little piece falls apart. So bishop a6, queen d1. Okay, so he recognizes the problem with what I was talking about with overworking his queen. So he goes queen d1, which I think is a good idea. And now my knight's actually attacked because the queen isn't pinned anymore. So I had to go knight b6, piling more pressure onto this pawn. And now he just decides to give up the pawn because you can't defend this. I could take it immediately, which is fine, but what I saw is if I give white a billion moves in a row, what's he gonna do? And this is an exercise that I think is very useful, especially when you're playing a position where you've where your compensation comes from piece activity, or a type of position where your opponent is cramped. And here, all of that's the case. So if I were to give white a bunch of moves in a row, I was thinking, how is he going to develop? And then I sat there and I thought, how is he going to develop? And then I still sat there and I thought, how is he going to develop? And I realized he's not going to develop. And if I take on c4, effectively I get to get rid of all of his pieces that are stuck there purely with the purpose of defending the pawn. I just ease him of all of that pressure. So if I'm able to keep the pieces on the board and force him to figure out what to do, then that's obviously preferable. And I also knew I can pretty much take this c4 pawn at any time I want, because like I said, I don't know what white's doing. Even if he wants to defend it, it's very hard to do so. So I castled, he castled, and he goes rook e1, trying to just put your pieces somewhere. It's hard to play for white, to be honest. I go rook c8, piling even more pressure, and you'll notice that every single move I'm playing has a purpose. All my pieces are very well coordinated. This is the way that I like to play. So knight d4, I actually didn't understand this move, because what I thought he might want to do is play f4, but the issue with playing something like this is your king is still on g1, so I'll pin your knight, and you'll really suffer with that pin. So I honestly don't understand this move. Finally, I took the c-pawn because I kind of maximally improved my pieces. I'm ready to take that pawn, because after all the trades happen, then I can improve even more. So here, all of my pieces are basically optimally placed. So yeah. And now he goes knight f3. I guess that was why he went knight d4. But still, it still has the same issue with all his pieces are stuck defending e5. And now I saw another concept that I wanted to do. I felt like my position was so good that I can just start to kind of do this again. I don't know what I'm going to call that, but I guess I do that a lot. I went h6, and the point is I want to go g5 and then clamp him on the king side. So the ideal position, I'm also, by the way, going to bring my bishop back here in a second, and that will happen. And I just want to play g5. I want to play g4. I want my bishop to attack his king. I want to go here. I want to go here. Obviously, I don't get a million moves in a row, but still, you should think about that sometimes. So he goes queen e2. I went bishop b7 because my bishop isn't useful on this diagonal anymore. Now if my knight moves away, then I actually hang my bishop. So he's putting himself into all these pins and all these spots where he has to defend, and I'm making my position very free. You don't want to tie your pieces down if you don't need to. And here's a nice move that I was pretty proud of, rook a5. So when I was saying earlier that I wanted to trade on c4 and further activate my pieces, this is what I had in mind. So when I first brought this rook to c8, I saw the possibility that the rook on a8, which looks kind of like it's doing not much, could come to this square and actually laterally attack this pawn, which, as I've said many times, is very weak. And it's actually a really nice square for the rook. And later on, if this e-pawn goes away, it can even swoop all the way to the king side and help me attack. So he goes back to knight back to f3, which isn't a very good sign when you're playing knight d2 and immediately going back when your pawn's attacked. And that kind of goes to show you that this, well, what he's saying here is that rook a5 is a silly move and doesn't help my position because we've basically got the same exact position, but but my rook is on a5 instead of a8. But unfortunately, it is good on a5, and I'm going to continue with my plan. I'm going to go g4. He went bishop d2, attacking my rook. I took his bishop. This knight doesn't really do too much anymore on this square. And I also just really want to keep attacking this pawn, so I traded. My rook's attacked again. So I went knight d5, defending, and also attacking at the same time. So this knight here, it was doing a good job when it was connected to this other knight, but now that this knight's gone, it's time for a new destination. So I saw I was going to go here, and I was also going to go to f4, which combines with my bishop on b7, and also the whole kingside expansion allows me to actually do that. So I thought it looked nice. I think actually I'm already, what am I threatening? Worst case, I'm threatening some kind of idea of playing g4 whenever I defend this pawn, and then, or actually, I'll just go knight f4 and pressure this pawn. You'll see. H4 is kind of crazy move. I expected him to play something like rook c1 at some point here, and I was gonna respond with rook c5 and this kind of trade. And I thought black should always be much better because I control the c file. He can never play rook c1 because I take it, and that hangs a rook. And because he can never do that, I thought it's really hard for white to do to progress the position here. And so he went crazy. He played bishop takes f5, and like I said, he probably should go rook c1, but he did that because he I think he saw the impending doom of the position, but he freaked out a little bit. And here I could take the bishop first, but after he sacks material, I want to trade as many. I saw that if I traded this bishop for the knight, that I have nothing to be afraid of. Even if I keep the knight alive, I'm probably fine. Like after like bishop f8 here. What I was probably wanting to avoid was this, and now I can't really do this because he takes here. I'm guessing I don't remember what I was thinking during the game, but it was probably something like this. But regardless, taking an f3, same idea. I'm going to take his piece, but I just get to trade more. So I do it. I go bishop f8, and I'm very safe here. And here I found a nice tactical move that keeps all my initiative. If I take here, I guess. Oh, he can't even play rook c1, by the way, because we take. If he takes everything, there's a fork, and in this position, I think this is winning. Wait, let me. This is kind of hard to just do on the fly, but okay, this is winning. So even if you tried to do that, it wouldn't really work. But I played rook takes e5 instead. And the point is I knew I was going to make this lecture about the rook eventually getting to the king side. So I did that. If he takes my knight, the tactical idea is rook takes e1, which is a discovered attack on the queen, and it's a check. So you just lose your queen here. So you can't take my knight. He traded rooks, but now the point is when the knight moves, I get to take on g5 with check, and it's pretty much going to be mate. So he went for a desperado. I played rook c7 because the queen can no longer defend the knight. He went here, and I saw a forced checkmate after takes and takes. Does anyone want to give me the line that's forced checkmate? We can go one move at a time if that's easier. What's the first move? Queen check, exactly. We take. And when you have a knight on f4 or on f5, Ben Feingold would say that Ben Feingold would say a lot of things, but he would also say knife f5. This is kind of like knife f4. Basically, knight on this square when there's a king here, especially when all these pawns are gone, is very, very strong. And it's why there's a mate. So if he goes to either of these squares, then we just checkmate in one. So he has to go here. And now what do we do? We're just going to keep giving checks. I'm not going to be a secret. That's not a secret. So where do we go? Yep, g2. The king has to go here. It's only legal move. And now how do we continue the checks? Yep, queen g1, king here.
Are we looking for checkmate or?
Yeah. There's going to be a checkmate here. The king is very boxed in. It might not look like it, but it's actually very boxed in. Queen f2, exactly, and he went, what did he do? He went to d1, and now there's mate in 3. Queen e2. Oh yeah, that is mate. I don't think I played that though, but that is mate. Because then after this move you'll have knight d3 check, and then queen takes b2 mates. I went queen f1 because the mate I saw was after king d2, queen d3. If he goes here, this is mate. I kind of like the knight being the final move with the checkmate. If he goes here though, I will have to checkmate with the queen, but okay. So he resigned, or did he resign? He either resigned or let me do that mate. I don't remember. So yeah, let's go back and see what did white do wrong this game. Well, he played theory that is known to be bad. You don't really want to do that. I do that too, so I can't hate on it that much. But I don't think you should, like, you just should not be playing this if you don't know b5. This is maybe a line you can play as white if you have some kind of like hard counter to b5. Like let's say my opponent studied this variation that's plus 0.5 for black. If he knows it really well and he knows all the ideas and how to perfectly defend all the issues, then like okay, you can play it. But if after b5 he just takes it and like gets this position, let's just say he probably doesn't play this opening anymore after this game. So yeah, aside from the opening prep part of this game, it's nice. I think that the way that I played illustrates there's a lot of flow in the way that my pieces work together this game. I had a very clear plan the whole time, which is very important. Anyone below 2,000, if you want to be above 2,000, you definitely should come up with plans. I definitely recommend that. And the plan here was attack the c-pawn. Once I took the c-pawn, my new plan, push on the king side and attack the king. So here's a little detour to attack this pawn. Now we do the plan of attacking on the king side. We're still attacking on the king side. And hey, my attack on the king side, I didn't even get to do it yet, and he's already sacking material. That's a pretty good position. And then I got to just luckily simplify, and pretty much nothing really went too wrong this game. And actually, the engine says that this was 96% accurate by me, which is why I wanted to show this game, because I normally don't play with that. Like my graphs don't usually look like that, so I had to pick the games where they did. So.
When did you start creating a plan? Like, when did you start? How did you develop a plan?
Well, I would say a lot of it comes from just playing this kind of opening so much, like generally just having experience in so many blitz games or classical games in the Sicilian, and this exact type of like, the way I developed I'm very familiar with. And also I just got lucky that I knew that this pawn sacrifice was a thing. And like I think a lot of high-level players do this. I got lucky that I was able to do it here. I don't normally get to play prep like this, but part of playing prep, the good thing about it is when you know what the engine thinks about the position, you can kind of like make inferences about what you need to be doing to justify the evaluation. So what I mean by that is after I played b5 and sacked the pawn, let's say all I knew is that b5 is the best move and I knew nothing else, which was like kind of true. I didn't know that much about it. When I'm sitting here at the board in this position, I'm thinking, okay, the engine told me to sack this b pawn. Why would it tell me to do that? And then I figure out, okay, it has to be to activate the bishop. And then I'm thinking, how do I activate the bishop? It's got to be on this diagonal. How do I get to this diagonal? Okay, sorry. First I attack this pawn because that's a forcing move. He has to go back. How do I activate this bishop? I put it on a6. How do I put it on a6? I push my a pawn. It all kind of like works one step at a time. You figure out what's good about your position, you make that better, and now you reevaluate at the next position. What's good about my position? This is good about my position. I'm going to work on that, etc. It's obviously easier said than done, but it is, once you get to a level where you're comfortable with most of your positions and you're pretty tactically sound, I think that a lot of chess games become your ideas versus their ideas, and that's when it gets fun, in my opinion. I think that this game wasn't that I calculated better than him. It was I understood the position better. I also he probably didn't mean to get into this lost line if he knew it was lost, or sorry, not lost, but worse. But I did understand the position better, and that's what happens. So, yeah, that was that game. We still have a few more minutes, so I'm just gonna pull up a tactic, because why not? That's what everyone does. So here, with the last 3 minutes of the lecture, white to play and win. And I like this tactic because it's kind of like what I was saying, where you go one step at a time. You got to just be very focused on what is the thing I need to accomplish in this position, and how can I do everything possible to make it happen. So I'll just give you guys some assistance because we have 2 minutes left, but black is going to play e1 equals queen next turn, and we want to stop that. That's the big hint. If anyone in the chat wants to give a solution, please go ahead. And in 2 minutes, I will reveal. Someone in chat is talking about the Smith-Morra declining the gambit with d3. My opinion is it's definitely good, but I think white just, I don't know, it's fine. It's fine. All the ways you decline the gambit are fine. I personally prefer playing knight f6 though. But I've seen a lot of grandmasters play d3 also. So we want to get something to defend this square, but that's really hard because if we go here, then he takes. Okay, he's not going to promote to a knight, sorry. He's going to promote to a queen. Someone says bishop c7, but still, this promotes to a queen. It's not going to be some way you give him the queen and win. You really are going to stop this. So we can't go here. We also can't go here because he takes. It looks like we're all out of moves, but let's just make all the pawns disappear off the board for a second. I think it's nice to just focus on the relevant pieces that can. Yeah, that's actually right. How do you want to check? Here? D6? Yeah, that's right. Why do you want to do that? What if he takes? Yeah, exactly. So I was trying to explain, imagine the pawns off the board, but he did it already. So yeah, so the resource here is you want to just envision what piece can even defend that square. That's step one. We don't want to think about how we're going to do it yet. This bishop theoretically has the capability to defend the e1 square. Now, how do we get there? So we can't go bishop a5 because that's illegal. We can't go here because it doesn't defend anything. But we notice now we can focus on the one little part of that tactic that we can control. This pawn can move due to if we play this move and it takes. Now, what does rook d6 check actually do? That's a whole nother question. So he doesn't have to take. He can go here. If he goes here, by the way, what's the sequence here? The idea of this tactic is the dark squares. If we can get on the dark squares with our bishop with a tempo that allows us to get to this diagonal, then we're good. So how do we get to that diagonal? Yeah, check, exactly. And then once the king moves back, now we gain the tempo and we get to go here. Yeah. And then after this takes, we're already defending this, so we can just go scoop the pawn and we're winning. Yep. So black's going to go here because it's the only light square that he can go to. Or sorry, he can actually go here, but the tactic will be the same. Okay, we're running out of time, so I will just show you guys the move. But basically, we need to get our bishop to check the king. That's the only possible way, unless we could get our rook here, but that's not happening. So rook h6 check. And the point is, if black takes, it looks like you're just hanging your rook. The idea is not bishop g5, because that hangs a piece. and there's nothing left. Or sorry, it is bishop g5, my bad. But it's not that you hang a piece and you have nothing left. It's that you put the king on another square that helps you gain another tempo. And you might not have even considered the fact that the king can actually defend this pawn. But now that the king has made it all the way to the square, after both the pieces we sacrificed, the king can make it back. And once you scoop up this pawn, by the way, I'll just illustrate why this is winning. We have two flank pawns, and black is just, he has to pick one side, and he's not going to make it.
That's why white's position is stronger, actually, even though it has fewer pawns, is because the pawns are flank pawns.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
When you have two pawns that are passed pawns on opposite sides of the board, and there's only kings left, then you're like 90% going to be winning. Because the only way you wouldn't be winning is if black also has passed pawns, but they're really easy to stop in this position. So yeah, that's the tactic. And also one last thing, if he goes to g7, we again get to do the check in here. If he goes to g8, there's two winning moves. There's rook h8, which would let you do this type of thing again, or you can actually just go bishop f6 first, which is just threatening an unstoppable rook h8 mate. So yeah, that's that tactic. I guess there were a lot of bishops on dark squares today. So I didn't get to show this game, but that's okay. Anyways, I guess that will do it for us. Does anyone have any questions about any of the games, any tactic, anything?
So I have a quick, just general. You were implying a little while ago in answering his question that it's good to play a similar opening for a while and get really familiar with that opening, assuming your opponent lets you do that. Is that your recommendation?
Yes, definitely. I think.
So like for you, it was the Sicilian.
Yes. No matter what your skill level is, unless you're already extremely strong, like probably Grandmaster or something,
Yeah.
You definitely should stick to one opening, maybe not one opening, but one like core opening. You can know different variations of it, but for me, for example, against e4, like your move one, in my opinion, should always be the same. I don't think there's a reason to change that. So people who are trying to play Sicilian and also play e5 and also play the Caro-Kann, like, and none of it impresses me when people are saying like they play all these openings, because I don't know, I think Magnus Carlsen said this one time. He was like, fear not the man who plays 1,000 openings once, but who plays one opening 1,000 times. And that's very true. Or you can just play 1,000 openings 1,000 times. That's what some grandmasters do. But if you can't do that, then you should do the other thing. Okay, if that's all for the questions, then that'll do it for today. Thank you guys for coming to the Road to 2000. I hope you guys have a smooth drive or something. But yeah, thank you.